But let me just break down for you right now what exactly US's deployments in the Middle East looks like. We're talking right now about them ramping that up significantly, which we'll get to. First, let me highlight the current deployment in the Middle East, starting off with Qatar, where they have the Al Udeid Air Base. This is the largest US base in the Middle East. It's got about 8,000 personnel. It serves as CENTCOM's regional headquarters, which is Central American Command Center. It's a critical hub for air operations. Then you have Bahrain, which has naval support activity. It hosts approximately about 9,000 personnel, serves as the headquarters for the US Navy's 5th Fleet, overseeing maritime operations in the Arabian Gulf and surrounding waters as well. In Kuwait, there is the Camp Arifjan, a major logistics base. It accommodates various US military branches. So we're talking about the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, all of that in Kuwait in this particular camp. In Saudi Arabia, the Prince Sultan Air Base sees about 2,700 US personnel stationed, focusing on training, on advising Saudi forces, on protecting US interests in this region. Let's talk about the UAE. This is the Al Dhafra Air Base. About 3,500 US military personnel are based here. They provide critical ports for naval operations in the United Arab Emirates. In Jordan, there are multiple bases. But in all, if you look at all of the bases in Jordan, there are about 3,000 US troops supporting operations against ISIS, also helping in regional stability is the statement that's put out by CENTCOM. Iraq, they have Union 3 and the Ain al-Azad Air Base. Now, it houses about 2,500 US personnel. They have advisory roles, training roles to assist Iraqi forces. In Syria too, there are various outposts. Approximately about 900 US troops are deployed in northeastern Syria particularly. In Oman, there are two ports, the Salalah port and the Duqm port. A few hundred US personnel here who are deployed in Oman. So they have quite a bit of deployment in the Middle East. But right now, you're seeing America bolster that further. About 31 refueling aircraft. This is the KC-135 Stratotanker and the KC-46 Pegasus. Both aircraft are vital to US global power projection as well. They allow fighters and bombers to stay airborne longer and operate far from home bases. They have been moved to Europe, to the Ramstein Air Base and several other locations as well. Then you have the aircraft carrier Nimitz. It's a nuclear-powered floating airbase, essentially powered by two nuclear reactors, giving it virtually unlimited range, endurance without refueling for over 20 years. The US's Nimitz is a floating airbase because it's capable of carrying around 60 to 70 aircraft. It's headed to the Middle East right now, exact location not known. So let me bring in Sandeep Unithan on this broadcast as well to talk about this deployment right now. Sandeep, we're looking at right now US sending in some of its critical military infrastructure to move closer to the Middle East, towards West Asia. What do you make of this? Do you think that's a step that we could read as Trump, preparing for military action?
Well, Akshita, either preparing for military action or trying to contain the fallout of what President Trump said that something big was going to happen. And that suggests that over the last couple of hours, as you mentioned, the wave of Boeing aircraft, the Stratotankers, the mid-air refuelers that have been flying out of mainland United States towards Europe and closer to the theater of action. There is one carrier strike group that's already in the Arabian Sea. The USS Carl Vinson strike group is there. The second strike group is coming out from Asia. That's the USS Nimitz strike group. And of course, a carrier strike group, you just have to look at their deployments to understand where the United States sees is an area of concern for them. So you're looking at something like 2 US carrier strike groups operating in the close vicinity of each other. That's something like 150, 200 fighter aircraft from these 2 aircraft carriers, plus all the bomber assets that the US has moved into Diego Garcia. That's a formidable air force and a fighting force of something like 300 aircraft in total, not counting all of those aircraft that are already in the bases across West Asia. So the United States moving in clearly for something very big, either an offensive against Iran from the air or to contain the effects of what they believe could be an Iranian retaliation onto US bases, because Iran has so far not targeted any of the US bases in West Asia. There are something like 8 or 9 very key US bases in several countries that you just outlined. None of them have been targeted by Iranian ballistic missiles so far. There is a possibility that Iran could, if push comes to shove, actually start firing their missiles at all of those US bases. There are something like 50,000 US service personnel that are deployed in all of those bases. All of them could be at risk from these new Iranian hypersonic missiles that Iran has started deploying only very recently. So this could also be a protective measure to move in all of those ships there to prevent Iran from attacking all of those bases, Akshita.
And if Iran goes ahead and attacks any of these US bases, then I think it's very clear it will be a full-scale war, because there's no way America then will sit back and watch. They will be forced to respond. But I think one of the biggest talking points is about the Iranian nuclear facility, which sits about 80 meters underground. And Sandeep has, in fact, filed for us earlier a detailed explainer of how the bunker buster bomb could really be, the game changer as far as US-Israel's conflict goes. If US decides to take military action, the bunker buster is something Iran will be extremely wary of. Now, delivered by B-2 stealth bombers, its 60-meter penetration may not be enough. Without US support, a successful Israeli strike remains unlikely. So can Israel actually hit Fordo? Take a look at this explainer.
One of the key objectives of Israel's Operation Rising Lion, launched against Iran last Friday, is to target Iran's nuclear weapons program, to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Let's look at Iran's nuclear weapons facilities, nuclear enrichment plants where Iran is believed to be enriching uranium to acquire nuclear weapons capability. This is the Iranian capital, Tehran, at the heart of the country. This is one enrichment facility called Natanz. There's a second one here in Pars province, it's called Fordo. And there's another research reactor here at Arak. But Natanz and Fordo are very crucial because these are the two enrichment plants that Iran has been running to enrich uranium to approach bomb-grade levels. Now, it's really important for Israel, therefore, to strike at these two facilities. But there's an issue here. Now, while Israel has launched these attacks from over 1,000 kilometers away, Israeli fighter jets have flown all of this distance to attack various targets inside Iran, including the Natanz facility. It's believed to have bombed several such facilities, and Natanz is believed to be completely out of operation. Now, Natanz is only about 9 meters below the soil. The facilities are just about 9 meters deep. It's heavily protected, but the Israelis have the bombs to attack this facility. But when it comes to Fordo, which is the second nuclear enrichment site that Iran has, there's a problem, and I'll explain why. Fordo is, the nuclear enrichment facilities are buried under a mountain that's something like 90 meters deep. There's a mountain, there's a range of mountains in fact, and this is where the facility, the nuclear enrichment facilities are, the halls where the centrifuges that spin around and reprocess uranium hexafluoride, they're located 90 meters below the ground. It's almost impossible to hit this. In fact, the only country that has the ordnance capable of striking this deep is the United States of America. And the US has a very interesting weapon called the GBU-43. Now, the GBU-43 is a weapon that's about 11 tons. It's a high explosive. It is the most powerful conventional bomb ever produced. It's almost 11 tons of explosive. It's also called the mother of all bombs, or Moab. Now, this was used once by the United States in Afghanistan a couple of years back. And this weapon is, in fact, so heavy that it has to be flown off the back of a transport aircraft like the C-130, which the United States also possesses. Now, this is flown off the back of a C-130 and launched into the target. But here again, there's a problem. Now, the Moab can penetrate up to only about 60 meters. That's believed to be the maximum penetrating depth. And this was used, for instance, in Afghanistan to target ISIS Khorasan when they had burrowed into caves and they were living in cave complexes in Afghanistan. The United States had used it there. Now, it's very clear that if Israel has to stop the Fordo nuclear plant from enriching uranium, it has to strike at a depth of something like 90 meters. And that capability has been, that capability rests only with the United States. And even here, there are problems that it cannot penetrate this entire depth. But given the kind of ingenuity that the Israelis have demonstrated in the past, it's very likely that they could find ways around this. The killing of Hassan Nasrallah, for instance, in Lebanon, the Hezbollah leader, was one such operation where the Hezbollah leader was in a six-story building underground, and Israeli jets flew multiple missions to strike him while he was there in his bunker. So possibly they could try something here similar, but with United States assistance. Israel cannot carry out the strike without this weapon, without getting it from the United States. Without that, its goal of putting Iran's nuclear weapons program back by several years, or indeed even destroying it, which is one of the key objectives of Operation Rising Lion, cannot be met.
So a very informative explainer there on how Israel could benefit if US takes military steps as well. It would prove the end of Iran's any fight back.